What is going on, Notre Dame fans? Mike Singer from blueandgold.com with Rivals National Recruiting Director Adam Gorney, based out on the West Coast. And just this past weekend, Rivals had its Los Angeles Rivals camp, and a couple of huge Notre Dame targets. First up, we'll talk about C.J. Williams, number 27 overall player in the country, number 3 receiver, 50 offers in total. So, Adam, I mean, you've probably seen C.J., half dozen times now in the past couple of years?
Yeah, easily. Every time I go see Mater Dei, he's on the field and he plays a lot of 7-on-7, goes to camps. One thing to love about him is that he always shows up to everything, competes so hard, loves the game, loves improving, always working out, really dedicated to what he's doing. And so I've seen CJ Williams a whole lot over the last few years. Yeah.
So tell me about him as a player. For me, he seems like a high level, like elite possession receiver. I don't think he's got like speed to burn, like he's got good size. But I mean, is that kind of how you guys see him? Is like he's just an elite technician at the receiver position?
Yeah, I think that's very fair to say. He's not going to be blowing by people down the field. I don't think any college coach is going to use him in that way anyway. But he's going to catch everything thrown his way. He's going to run great routes. He's going to get open, and in a crowd, he can catch, 50-50 balls with the best of them. So that's really his game. He's a physical kid. You can see him, he's kind of long and lean, but a strong kid that has great hands and is a great route runner, very well coached down there at Mater Dei. So, those are the things that really stand out about him.
Now, in your role, you know Mater Dei just as well as anybody, and now you're on the national side of things. Of course, for a while you were just a West Coast guy. Now you're national. Where do you compare Mater Dei to the rest, of the powerhouse schools in the country? And I would even include IMG, even though that's kind of a whole different discussion. But if Notre Dame's able to win this recruitment and get C.J. Williams, I mean, they haven't got a guy from Mater Dei in quite some time. Like, how big would that be for them to maybe start a Mater Dei pipeline? Because that should be a school that Notre Dame just recruits well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be 1, 2, 3 nationally, in terms of high school programs. In terms of how it's run, it's probably 1 or 2. I think Bosco and Mater Dei are so phenomenally run. They're basically like college programs for high school kids. They have every resource available to them. They get kids in there every single year. The roster is never depleted. I think 2 years ago was really telling when St. Francis from Baltimore came out and played Mater Dei. Really one of the biggest programs on the East Coast against Mater Dei, and Mater Dei just torched them. It wasn't even close. You could tell the difference in coaching. You could tell the difference in how the players were coached and how they reacted. Every year at Mater Dei, almost every single person on the field is going to end up on a Division I football team. Now, they're all not going to go to Notre Dame, but a lot of them are. I mean, for example, Bryce Young, just a few years ago, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and JT Daniels were on the same team together. Now it's CJ Williams and David Bailey and Raleek Brown and Damani Jackson. This is definitely one of the best high school programs. And it's not just filled with talented players that don't know what they're doing. Bruce Rawlinson runs an incredibly sharp program there. A lot of his assistants could probably be on college staffs. It's just a great, great program that for years has fed players to USC and continues to. Damani Jackson is committed there. But players are going elsewhere too. And so I think Notre Dame is definitely one of those schools where players have gone before, and it would be very smart to continue that pipeline if they could, because every single year they're practicing against the best and then going out and just dominating their competition.
So Notre Dame offered C.J. Williams about 15, 16 months ago. So I've been involved in the recruitment, but Adam kind of felt like Notre Dame was running around fifth, sixth, seventh for quite some time. And then it was like, all right, now they're kind of creeping into that 3 to 5 range. I felt like maybe 6 months ago. Now you can make a case that Notre Dame's the leader in this recruitment. Of course, Ohio State, Texas also involved, Alabama, some few other schools. Where do you kind of see Williams' recruitment at right now? What do you think about Notre Dame's chances here, Adam?
Yeah, Notre Dame has as good of a chance, I think, as anybody. And I hate to say things like this, but he feels like a Notre Dame kid in many ways. Very focused on academics, no problem kind of kid. Just I think the culturally he would fit in very, very well there. Texas is an interesting one. I think playing for Sark would be very appealing. Playing with Malik Murphy would be very appealing. Ohio State, again, the receivers that they have there and just kind of continuing to add in would be very appealing to him. I think Alabama has slowed down just a little bit. Probably wants to see him during the summer, as Alabama will want to see a whole lot of kids. I'm not counting out USC. I'm not counting out Oregon. I'll never count those guys out for for West Coast kids, especially kids from modern day. But Notre Dame has definitely steadily climbed the ladder, I think. Getting him on campus this summer is going to be very important, just so he gets a feel for what's kind of going on there, the feel for how they use him in the offense, and all those kinds of things. But if he ends up at Notre Dame, I certainly wouldn't be surprised. If you asked me 6 months ago, I'd say they're probably fourth or fifth, a good showing, but definitely not going to get him.
And quick thoughts, he was the receiver MVP at the Rivals camp in LA this past weekend. What'd you think about his performance?
Yeah, I mean, he does the same thing everywhere he goes. Every time I see him, I saw him earlier in the season. Really, they didn't throw the ball a whole lot to him. They were using some other guys, Cooper Barcotti and Raleek Brown out of the backfield. But everywhere he goes, he pretty much puts up a very strong, solid performance. He's super consistent. He's not a kid who's ever going to show up somewhere and just kind of go through the motions. He's going to go out and attack. That's what I love about his game. And he's going to go out there and produce. So just another strong performance from him. Not surprising. That's why I prefer him slightly right now over T-Mac in terms of California receivers. McMillan is a very, very talented kid. Longer, probably a little bit more dynamic athletically, but CJ Williams goes out there and wants it every single second of every single day. And that's what I like about him so much.
Certainly would be interesting to see, if he ends up a 5-star prospect, certainly on the cusp of it right now with that 6.0 recruit ranking. Another big-time Notre Dame target out in your region, Adam, Cyrus Moss, who was also at the Rivals camp, number 80 overall player in the country, number 2 weak side end. Tell us what you think about Moss. You've seen him in person before, of course. I mean, talk about another big-time program, Bishop Gorman, that Notre Dame would love to get in and really start a pipeline there. They just offered, a 2023 kid there this week, Cyrus Moss. Of course, Jake Taylor, the 4-star offensive tackle. So tell us a bit about Moss, what you saw last weekend, and just overall thoughts about him as a player.
Yeah, I've actually seen Moss twice over the last month, and he's working out more on the camp circuit at defensive end, kind of coming off the edge a little bit more, trying to work on that stuff. I see him more as of a stand-up guy playing in space. He's not going to be blitzing every single down, but what stands out so much about him is that he is so long. He looks like a small forward on a basketball team. He has incredibly long arms. He covers ground really well. He's a playmaker, super athletic and comfortable in his body. 2 years ago, this was a kid who looked like a lanky, tall, wide receiver type, and you just didn't know if he was going to fill out at all. His frame, he's about 6'4", 6'5". He's just really long. He was really long and skinny, and now he's muscled up. He's never going to be, super jacked up, but he is I think the comparison is Anthony Barr. Just a guy who's long, rangy, can cover ground, exactly what you're looking for in your defense, in 2021. So, a very interesting kid in terms of projection and ranking. Is he going to be a hand down defensive end? Probably not. He'll be kind of on that edge and playing there, but those guys are almost as valuable as anybody in a defense now. So he's exactly kind of what a lot of people are looking for in their defense.
You talked about a couple years ago when he was, real long and lanky. Well, that's the tape we're watching. This is his sophomore film in fall of 2019. I think Bishop Gorman only had like 2 games, and it was basically glorified scrimmages during the spring season in 2021. Yeah. So not any updated film in terms of huddle, but of course, like Adam said, got to see him a couple times here recently. And as far as his recruitment goes, I mean, this one seems a little bit more of a long game, whereas I mean, Williams could pop anywhere between, end of June to, Under Armour All-American type stuff. Moss, it seems much more likely he's going to take it the distance. Oregon, Arizona State, Clemson, Florida, Notre Dame as top 5 schools. What do you think about his recruitment, Adam?
Yeah, I do think he's going to take it for a while here. He's visits are going to be super important for him, and he's not going to take a lot of visits until he can get on, to campuses in the fall and see games. I think that's really kind of what he wants to do. He might see some schools this summer, but when he can see when he can see games at schools, I think that's going to be most important. I think Oregon might have a little slight edge here. It's hard to really know yet, though, until he goes to see schools. So this summer is going to be important. This fall is going to be important, but definite interest in Notre Dame. I think he loves what the defense does there. I think, again, a kid culturally that would fit in absolutely no problem. So I think those things definitely play in Notre Dame's favor.
Yeah, Moss will take an official visit to Notre Dame. I believe he also has Oregon, if I'm not mistaken, in June, and then should be taking some officials in the fall as well. We'll end on Niuafe Jr. Tuihalamaka. Interesting. Number one inside linebacker in the country, but number 71 player nationally. So I feel like that might be a indication of the inside linebacker spot. Is it kind of just like not as important, like a true inside backer? Like, can you kind of give me your thoughts on the national versus his position ranking?
Yeah, and this fluctuates year to year. I mean, Justin Flo and Gabe Noah Sewell were five-star guys, probably both inside linebacker types, but they can move outside too. But this year, the inside linebacker group we feel is not as strong as some other years. Junior kind of struggled during this season. I think it's fair to say across the board. I don't know if it was just the delay, not playing until the spring could have screwed up kind of the plans of how he was going to play, how he was being used, all those kinds of things. But when I saw him during his sophomore year, he was phenomenal. As you see on this tape, he can kind of move around a little bit. He fills the hole. He knocks people around. He's physical. He moved really well. When I saw him during 7-on-7 season, he was decent. It's hard for linebackers in 7-on-7 to do a whole lot, but he played in space and made some plays and those kinds of things. I think he struggled a little bit in his junior year. We will see if he stays number one at the position. We have rankings coming up over the next couple of weeks, and we'll discuss that after seeing some other guys. But definitely a talented guy who's big, who's thick, who likes to thump people, who likes to go around the field and make plays. And so those are the things that we really liked about him for a long time.
And then recruiting wise, a former USC commit, then Notre Dame offers 2 days later. Or he was committed to USC. Notre Dame offers decommits from the Trojans 2 days after he got that offer. Seems like the Irish are up there, but also Texas, Stanford, also in the mix as well. What do you think about his recruitment, Adam?
Yeah, I've been told that he and the people around him are super focused on a high academic school. I think that plays very much into Notre Dame's favor. I think the linebacker history there from Manti Te'o on down definitely plays into Notre Dame's favor. I think that's probably where he and his family want to go. I think that would be a surprise if he ended up somewhere else. Texas is a possibility. I think Stanford would be an interesting one. He'd be able to stay in state. I think that's what he told me David Shaw has been kind of pitching that to him, that Stanford is a 4-hour car ride and Notre Dame is a 4-hour flight. Those kinds of things will be the inside recruiting battle that goes on here. So staying in state and getting a degree from Stanford seems appealing, but I really do feel like he wants to play at Notre Dame, play with that history and tradition, play with that linebacker tradition, and also still get the super quality degree there. So I think Notre Dame is definitely the favorite. We'll see if that changes. I don't think playing on the same 7-on-7 team as Malik Murphy really matters in terms of his final decision going to Texas. I probably think this is Stanford Notre Dame with Notre Dame in the lead.
That's been Adam Gorney talking about Notre Dame targets CJ Williams, Cyrus Moss, and Noafe Jr. Tuihalamaka.